In a striking diplomatic overture, President Emmanuel Macron arrives in Rome to meet Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, signalling a possible end to years of tense Franco-Italian relations. Once defined by sharp ideological clashes and public discord, this high-stakes summit now aims to forge unity amid mounting European uncertainties. With migration, Ukraine and EU cohesion at the forefront, the world watches closely. Is this a genuine reconciliation or strategic alignment? I'm Rana Khassas. Welcome to Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
The Financial Times has reported that in a bid to mend strained ties, French President Emmanuel Macron meets Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Rome, aiming to bridge ideological divides on issues from Ukraine support to economic competitiveness. Despite their political differences and past public clashes, both leaders seek to align on regional security, migration and industry amid growing European uncertainties. The discussions come as the end of the EU faces internal challenges over the Mercosur trade deal, with Italy's stance potentially decisive. Meanwhile, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development warns against hasty supply chain localization, urging unity and strategic trade partnerships to safeguard economic stability across the continent. According to the New York Times, in high-stakes bid to bridge deep ideological divides, French President Emmanuel Macron meets Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Rome, aiming to transform the rival into cooperation. Despite clashing visions on Europe, Ukraine and global alliances, both seek common ground amid escalating geopolitical tensions. Their strained relationship, marked by public disputes and historical tensions, reflects broader European fractures. Yet with Russia-Ukraine war, US trade pressures and internal EU divisions looming, the meeting signals a strategic push for unity even between political opposites. As Europe grapples with uncertainty, this summit offers a symbolic step towards stability, underscoring the urgent need for diplomatic cohesion in a world increasingly defined by conflict and fragmentation. French President Emmanuel Macron arrives in Rome for a high-stake visit with Italy's Giorgia Meloni, a symbolic step from the rival to reconciliation amid rising global tensions in EU divisions.
Once bitter rivals, now seated across from each other in Rome, French President Emmanuel Macron arrives for a historic visit with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. This is more than diplomacy, it's a carefully choreographed reset. Years of tension, now thawing. After years of public clashes over migration, European values and foreign policy, this meeting marks a pivotal shift. But what triggered the change? Analysts point to shared geopolitical pressures from Ukraine to EU defense. Both leaders need unity, and Meloni's growing rapport with Donald Trump adds a new layer of her evolving stance toward France. The stakes are high. At the heart of their talks, border control, joint energy projects, and support for Kiev. These issues mirror broader EU struggles, making Franco-Italian cooperation essential. Can old wounds heal? Despite ideological divides, both leaders know Europe needs strong leadership. If France and Italy can find common ground, it could pave the way for a more unified bloc. Macron's visit may not erase years of rivalry overnight, but in a world full of uncertainty, even small steps toward reconciliation can signal big changes ahead.
Providing more analysis about the most recent updates concerning what's behind Macron's visit to Rome after years of tension. Joining us from Paris, Dr. Majid Bouden, international law professor, and Mr. Meher Nicholas Frizili, director of the European Asian Center for Strategic Studies. A very warm welcome to both our dear guests and to Think Tank, sir. And we start off with Dr. Bouden. How does Macron's Rome visit reshape the legal and diplomatic foundations of EU cohesion in light of deep ideological rifts, sir?
Well, the diplomacy is based on politics, on strategies, and not completely on ideology. We have seen that Giorgina Meloni is more pragmatic than all the extreme left governments in Europe, like Orban or like others in the parties, like now in extreme right in Portugal or in Spain or in Slovenia, in Poland for the new president. So she's more pragmatic. She is. She has declared several times, and she's acting like that. She wants to be within the EU, and she wanted to be in full solidarity. And until now, all her acts are not against this. But still, there are a lot of gaps between Meloni and Macron. And Macron is trying here to see the occasion to reestablish and to rebuild the relationship because there is a need that the two countries will stand together within Europe first, within the EU, and then within this dialogue or this confrontation or this relationship with Trump. So in this field, both of them have a strategic gain to be together. And
sir, is this the reason why this change is triggered at this point, sir?
Yes, this is the major point. We can notice that the change of president in Poland, which happened 2 days ago, happened after the meeting was scheduled. So it was not it was not the reason. It's true that now Poland is facing a big problem because they have a prime minister who is a liberal, Donald Tusk. He's a liberal. He's pro-European, and now he has a president who is against the construction of the EU, and he is a liberal. So Poland is a very major country in Europe, with its population, with its agriculture, with its border with Russia. But this meeting, which will tackle this position, was scheduled before. So the main issues here, and also we have a new pope, and the new pope strategically he's more close to the thinking of.
Okay, sir, I'll leave it here and I'll be back to the point of the pope because it's a very important answer that I have to listen from you, sir, but I'll go to Mr. Frizzelli. A very warm welcome, sir. And of course, we heard Mr. Boudin, which mentioned that Giorgia Meloni is pragmatic and that diplomacy is based on strategies. Mr. Frizzelli, how does Meloni's balancing act between Trump and European allies impact the strategic depth of Franco-Italian cooperation? And please comment on Mr. Boudin's two things that he mentioned, which is Meloni is pragmatic and also diplomacy is based on strategies. So how do you what he's saying, sir?
I think I would add that politics on geopolitics is theater. And we have a beautiful example today in Rome with that Macron-Meloni meeting, because precisely a year ago, there was another meeting in Italy, 300 kilometers south of Rome, in a village called Borgo Ignazia near Bari, which was the location for the G7 summit, which took place precisely a year ago. And back then, Italy was chairing the G7 summit. And there, Macron was very hostile to the host. The host, the inviting party was Italy, and he was very harsh with her, with Meloni.
Why, sir, was he harsh at that point? Because it was tense?
Yeah, it was tense to the extent that the big G7 official dinner, which was held on the 14th of June in Borgo Ignazia, on purpose, Macron arrived 2 hours late for dinner, and there's a very famous photo where you see Meloni staring at him aggressively when he enters the dinner hall. What I'm coming at is the world changed a lot in the past year because Trump moved into the White House 4 months ago. And for Meloni, it's a big plus because she is less isolated, because the Biden White House, especially, Tony Blinken, who was the foreign minister back then, and Jacob Sullivan, who was the national security minister.
He was the U.S. Secretary of State.
Yeah, exactly. So the Jake Sullivan, national security advisor, Tony Blinken, State Department, they were very hostile to Meloni. Thanks to Trump, they're gone. And so then there's a new White House, there's a new U.S. government, which is more in tune with Meloni's worldview. And of course, the recent elections in Romania, in Poland, etc., have brought to power, or nearly brought to power in the case of Romania, people who are ideologically aligned with the White House, with President Trump and Meloni. To make a long story short, she is less isolated. A year ago, she was very isolated.
Sir, less isolated means, from your own narrative, that she is now more powerful or more pragmatic, or where does she stand exactly? Could you furthermore explain less isolated?
Yeah, so less isolated means a little more powerful, but she always was an ultra pragmatic, right? So people like Friedrich Merz in Germany, Emmanuel Macron in France, and to a lesser extent, Keir Starmer in London, and they are the ones supporting Ukraine, and they are the ones trying to build what they call a coalition of the willing, right? So the coalition of the willing leaders, two are inside the EU, Friedrich Merz and Emmanuel Macron. One is outside the EU, but very close, Keir Starmer. They have an existing ideology. Meloni, on the contrary, she doesn't like ideology, and she's an ultra, some would say, Machiavellian or cynical. I don't like the word. I would say ultra realist. She's extremely pragmatic. She's a realist. Trump is on the same wavelengths. He's a neo-realist. So these people speak the same language. And now the main reason why Macron is in Rome today, he's trying to bring Italy on board into the coalition willing with Germany, with the UK and France against Russia, but also symbolically against Trump, because Trump doesn't like the coalition of the willing.
But Mr. Frizzelli, this is a move that's worth respect and should be hailed, and it's worth appreciation. How do you read it?
Sorry, I couldn't hear your answer, your question.
I said, sir, it's a move that's worth respect. It should be hailed and praised. And it's worth respect. How do you read it from your own perspective?
Yeah, I read it the following way.
What I said is right or wrong?
Yeah. So I think that there are two levels. There's domestic and foreign. So if you look at Germany and France, right, the coalition of the willing, public opinion in Germany, not only Friedrich Merz, right-wing, centrist, most parties in Germany, they support the coalition of the willing and the war against Russia. The same in the UK. So we have a Labour government in London, but even the right-wing conservatives, they are pro-NATO and anti-Russia. In Italy and France, it's fascinating because in Italy and France, public opinion is very divided. And so more than half of the Italian people, voters, including Meloni voters, they don't like the idea of continuing the war against Russia. And we have the
Okay,
same
sir, I'll leave you here and I'll be back again, but I'll go back to Dr. Boudin. Dr. Boudin, we stood at the point where you were mentioning the Pope, and I want to know the importance of the role of the Pope and what's going on at this point.
The Pope has a very symbolic role, and he's heard when he speaks. And you have seen
the new one?
the late one and the new one too. The new one is American.
The late one we had respect to, sir. We're discussing now everything that's changing, and the dynamics are changing, and the geopolitical dynamics are changing. So I was just asking you about the new one.
Yeah, but the new one too, because the new one is also continuing the institution, and the institution is still strong and still has a very important intellectual, moral, ethical weight. So you have seen that G.D. Vance tried to see the at last day, and they were informed that he was very, very sick and that he was going to pass away.
Yeah.
So they wanted to see him, and he saw the new Pope, and this is very important. And this new Pope is not very close to the ideas of Giorgia Meloni. He's more open.
Okay, got your point, Dr. Boudin. Now you want to say that this Pope is closer to Giorgia Meloni than he is to Emmanuel Macron.
No, he's more close to Emmanuel Macron in the ideas. He's than to Giorgia Meloni. He is more liberal. He more human. He had this. He comes from Leon XIII, who has and the Augustine part of the church. He's very social. He has been living in Peru, in Central and this area in America, and he's very close to the people, and he's very careful to the poor people. So he will have the same approach to immigration than Pope Francis. So Emmanuel Macron, he is close to him, and Leon XIV is close to Emmanuel Macron. But Meloni, she is in Rome, and the Vatican is in Rome. So this is something that should be taken into consideration. The point here, I believe, that I don't think that Meloni will be stronger. There is and the populations in France and in Italy, they are supporting Ukraine. They are supporting Ukraine because they want to support their security. They feel that if Ukraine will fail, they will have problems. And
Dr. Boudin, sorry, I have to move on now to the UN Security Council because Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian representative to the United Nations, is saying his own to the UN, of course, United Nations Security Council, is saying now his speech, which we have to listen to, and we'll be back again.
Are committing these crimes against the Palestinian people and also you will be contributing to hold those criminals to account and to advance the cause of justice through accountability. So we are all in this thing together. Now, with regard to the plan, how it is unfolding, we decided in the Arab group through our representative Algeria, of course with the help of the other representative, Somalia, that we do not accept complacency in the Security Council. The Security Council has a responsibility to maintain international peace and security. And what is happening in Gaza is a threat against international peace and security. So the Security Council has a responsibility to act. Therefore, the meetings that we had last week and the week before, the international community, the Secretary General, the senior officials of the United Nations, led by Mr. Fletcher and others, and the experts that we brought, especially the doctor from San Francisco, who was in Gaza, who shared with the Security Council the details of the crimes in the medical field, were contributions to maximize the power in the Security Council to act, not to remain paralyzed. So as a result of all these efforts, things started to move in the Security Council, reached the level of a draft resolution, adopted and approved by the E10, the majority, the elected members in the Security Council, and they engaged other members of the Council. My understanding that a member of the E10 took upon itself to engage one country, permanent member, trying to convince them to have a humanitarian resolution, to stop the crime, to allow for humanitarian assistance. In this connection, we support the position of the UN articulated by the SG and Mr. Fletcher that there is no mechanism that can address the needs of the Palestinian people except the UN mechanisms, including UNRWA, which has 400 stations in the Gaza Strip to distribute to the people in the Gaza Strip, not the 3, 4, or 5 stations that were fictitiously established to provide some assistance. And you saw the horrors of when thousands, maybe tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip trying to go to these places, being sniped at, assassinated, terrified, about 1 kilometer away from one of the stations, according to some of your media colleagues who have reported, including a representative of CNN. I was listening to him yesterday reporting from Tel Aviv. He said that there were confirmed reports from humanitarians and others that 1 kilometer away from the place of reaching the humanitarian distribution center, according to the mechanism put in place, not the UN mechanism, and then there were gunned down some Palestinians through snipers and other methods of killing them to horrify them so that they do not even reach this mechanism that they put in place for humanitarian assistance. So the mechanism of the UN, the solid one, is the one that is supported almost by everyone, the Arabs, the Muslims, the Europeans, everyone, because why do you try to find a mechanism when the existing mechanism is a solid one, tested one, proved itself? They have the experience, they have the personnel, they know how to reach the people in all corners of the Gaza Strip and provide humanitarian assistance to them. So we will know in the Security Council at 12 o'clock exactly what the E10 will proceed to do with the humanitarian draft resolution. And now the Security Council has to act. And the threat or the fear of not succeeding should not deter the Security Council from carrying its responsibility. But of course, the Security Council speaks for itself. We are in contact with all those who are genuinely concerned and outraged. It was not only the Palestinian people who are outraged, as I expressed in my last statement in the Security Council, but I can objectively say the great majority of humanity nation states are outraged of what is really going on in Gaza, and they want to do something. So that's why we see some elevation and changes of positions from big important countries in Europe and beyond, such as France, UK, and Canada. Their statement 10 days ago was very clear, very powerful, and very different than previous positions that they have articulated on this issue. That is significant. That is a beginning of turning the corner, and we hope to see more of that. And it is not Israel that will decide the future of the people in the Middle East, especially the Palestinian people. It is us. We, the people, will determine our own future with the support and the help of the great majority of nations. So we will see what happens in the Security Council. In the General Assembly, we are grateful for Spain's initiative to go to the General Assembly with a humanitarian resolution. That resolution was adopted at the highest level in Spain, led by the Prime Minister. General Assembly is acting. Geneva is acting. Now, the international conference. Of course, several meetings took place. I am sure that you covered a number of them in preparation for this conference. What has been accomplished so far is a concept note. It's a very clear, strong, effective concept note of what this conference wants to accomplish. And also the 8 roundtable were also established. The definition of the role of each of these roundtables has been articulated as well. The leadership, the co-chairs of these roundtables also has been decided. The majority of them are from European countries for obvious reasons, and Arab countries for obvious reasons, without excluding regions. For example, in North and South America, Canada is in the leadership loop. Mexico is in the leadership loop. Brazil is. In Africa, Senegal is, in addition, of course, to Egypt. In Asia, we have Japan in the leadership role, and we have Indonesia, in addition to the Europeans and the Arabs. So all corners of the globe are there. These are powerful countries. If the 19 leaders, the 2 co-chairs and the co-chairs of the 8th roundtable, to commit to implement what they called for in the concept paper, expect from them to commit and to declare before the conference and during the conference to a number of practical steps such as for those who have not recognized the state of Palestine to do so, or those countries with financial capabilities to commit substantial amount of money in order to strengthen the institutions of the state of Palestine in the years to come, in a concrete way, in a financial way, supporting programs so that this state of Palestine to become stronger and stronger in the face of this ruthless occupation.
It is us who will determine our future with ourselves. These were the words or the main statement of course, Riyad Mansour, EU representative of the of Palestine at the United Security, and he also mentioned that the Gazans and the Arab have the will and have the willpower and will see and witness what the United Nations Security Council will be doing in the coming period. Of course, he hailed and he praised all the change in the, of course, attitude and, of course, in the change that took place in at least 19 countries, or the countries that are now, he saw that there is different articulation. These are his words. He said existing mechanism is approved and we know how to reach the people, and how to reach them we have to reach and know what's happening. He also mentioned that the UN resolution, which we are awaiting, and the fear of the UN not achieving should not be put into action. And objectively, he also said that what's going on in Gaza is outrage, and that everyone says that it's outrage and it's barbaric and it's horrific, and that it cannot be going on more. He went on to say that the alleviation that's taking place from the, of course, European countries such as France, the UK, Canada, which is very straightforward, to the point, and that the articulation and is articulated nowadays in a different way. He also mentioned that over the past 2 weeks he made his speech at the UN Security Council, and that his speech made constructive and very much change, of course, in everything that's taking place. He said that committee crimes against Palestinian people will not be accountable altogether, and it will not happen again, and that all our Arab group, of course, in compliance with the United Nations Security Council, should consider what's happening to the Gaza, happening in Gaza, and this is a threat towards the people of Gaza. He also mentioned, of course, that reporters from CNN reporting that from that kilometers away from reaching distribution centers, aid distribution centers, which feed the Palestinians and the Gazans, were gunned down and terrified not to put in place aid and not to be helped by snipers, and they were very much treated in a very humiliating way, which is not accepted anymore. And that the reaction, and he, of course, he said that in the last 2 weeks, again, he shared with the Security Council, reaction is not anymore, does not remain paralyzed. This is his words, and it is moving into action in the UN Security Council, and they engaged other members of the council, which are engaged now. One, of course, of the countries, which is a permanent member, is trying to convince them now to stop the crisis under the auspices, of course, of Fletcher, which he mentioned. He also mentioned the UNRWA, saying that it is the job and it is the mission of UNRWA to stop, of course, the horrors and of many thousands of Palestinians who are assassinated, sniped and killed. And he is still, of course, saying his speech, but these are the most important words, and they were all Of course, last week we heard Riyad Mansour's speech at the UN Security Council, which was heartbreaking, which of course he was snobbing while he was saying his words, and he said Palestinians are not barbarians and we should not be treated as barbarians, and what's happening over there is heartbreaking, and we should not be treated as animals. And of course, dear viewers, Q News will be bringing you minute by minute coverage and exactly the words of Riyad Mansour. But till then, stay tuned watching Q News. And dear viewers, unfortunately, we were not able to continue our episode due to this urgent breaking news. That was Dr. Majid Bouden, international law professor. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. And thank you very much for hearing the words of course, Riyad Mansour, which were very important to us today. And Mr. Meher Nicolas Ferzelli, director of the European Agent Center for Strategic Studies. I really wanted you both to, of course, comment on what Riyad Mansour said now, but I don't know if we do have time or not. Thank you very much for both for your special insights and for your valuable knowledge, and thank you very much for your time. In a world fraught with conflict and division, Emmanuel Macron and Meloni's meeting marks a pivotal step toward unity. Whether this signals true reconciliation or tactical alignment, Europe watches closely as Rome and Paris navigate diplomacy's delicate dance in uncertain times. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the complexities of our changing world. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News, especially the breaking news which we were just covering now. Thank you very much for watching.